Donald Trump called Volodymyr Zelensky, the duly elected president of Ukraine, quote-unquote, a dictator. Zelensky finds the hardest part about Trump calling him a dictator is figuring out if that was intended to be a compliment. Trump himself declared, quote, "It's good to be the king," after he used his power as president to reverse New York City's congestion pricing. Some of his associates have picked up on this, adding the crown emoji to their tweets when referring to Trump. During a Black History Month ceremony in the East Wing on Thursday, Trump, out of nowhere, asked the crowd, quote, "Should I run again? You tell me." And the audience of supplicants responded yes and began chanting 4 more years. The unitary executive theory is a belief that the president has unilateral control over the entire executive branch, as well as the agencies contained within. If you read Project 2025, you'll see that the plan is to run the entire executive branch, every cabinet and sub-cabinet level agency, through the Oval Office to concentrate the power in one man. It's why Donald Trump signed an executive order this week to gain more control over independent agencies like the Federal Election Commission, the FCC, the Federal Trade Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission. These are agencies established through acts of Congress that are independent of the president, even though they are housed inside the executive branch. Their commissioners are appointed by the president, but they have to be confirmed by the Senate, which has oversight. The Washington Post reporting this morning that Donald Trump is about to sign an executive order dissolving the Postal Service's oversight board and fold it into the Commerce Department. The Post Office is a quasi-government agency. It's part government, part independent. The Post reporting the board has hired outside counsel to sue Trump if he goes through with the plan to gain control over the Postal Service, with most legal experts saying such a move would be unconstitutional. Yes, let's put Donald Trump in charge of our mail-in ballots. Donald Trump, he is signaling with all 5 fingers that he wants a three-peat, a third term. But he can't count, so he's raising all 5 fingers. But he's talking three-peat. First it's a joke until it's not. One of the proponents of unitary executive theory is Steve Bannon, who spoke at CPAC on Thursday. During his speech, Bannon got the crowd to chant, "We want Trump," after Bannon said Trump should run for a third term. The crowd was a little light since Bannon had to follow Elon Musk, who lit up the room, literally brandishing a chainsaw. And after Musk spoke, the crowd began leaving by the time Steve Bannon took the stage. Musk intentionally positioned himself before Bannon. He wanted to blow the room out so Bannon couldn't follow him, to punish Bannon, who earlier in the week called Elon Musk, quote, a parasitic illegal immigrant. He is an illegal immigrant. He came to America on a student visa, but didn't go to Stanford. He lied and started working in Silicon Valley. He was an illegal immigrant, and his citizenship should be revoked. A month ago, Bannon called Musk, quote unquote, a truly evil person, unquote. Again, not sure if that was an attack on the man's character or high praise. Musk, during his CPAC speech, addressed the subject of the war in Ukraine, asking the crowd, quote, "How many more years is this supposed to go on? What exactly are they dying for? I'll tell you what, for the biggest graft machine in my entire life." He added, "The amount of money that has been taken in graft and bribery is disgusting." He's accusing Zelensky of being corrupt. He goes on to say, "These poor guys are being fed into a meat grinder for money, and it needs to stop," says the man who was feeding our civil service into the meat grinder to pay for his tax cut. Musk traffics in lies. He has no evidence to back up these charges of graft in Ukraine. Republican Josh Hawley has called for an inspector general for Ukraine to monitor how the $174 billion we've given so far is being spent. But Musk doesn't like inspector generals. He doesn't want anybody looking into possible graft and fraud in Ukraine. Why? Miles Klee, writing in Rolling Stone magazine this week, said our very own FBI Director Kash Patel gave several interviews over the past couple of years where he accused Elon Musk of amassing his fortune through government contracts. Rolling Stone says our new FBI Director, Kash Patel, recently called Elon Musk America's largest defense contractor. Rolling Stone had to correct that statement. Our new FBI director is incorrect, says Rolling Stone. They write that while Musk's SpaceX has $22 billion in government contracts, it's not quite our largest defense contractor. But I don't think Mr. Government Efficiency accusing Ukraine of wasting 175 billion American taxpayer dollars, I don't think he wants an inspector general looking into his defense contracts, his satellite, where the money for his satellite hookups actually go. The point is, Musk doesn't traffic in truths. This is the guy who owns Twitter. Studies show he is the biggest spreader of misinformation on the internet. He doesn't traffic in truth. He only repeats what sounds good. On Thursday, Musk, for example, told the CPAC crowd, he repeated this lie that Social Security is sending out checks to millions of Americans falsely claiming to be over the age of 100. This despite Trump's appointee to head Social Security keeps correcting him. Doesn't matter if it's true. It gets a laugh. This is like a comedian's mindset. Just tell the joke. If it gets a laugh, you tell it. On the subject of Ukraine, Donald Trump attacked Vladimir Zelensky, saying, quote, he better move fast or he is not going to have a country left, unquote. Trump then called for Zelensky to lift martial law in Ukraine so Trump can have it. Give me your martial law. Well, there is martial law in Ukraine. I wonder why. After the invasion, Zelensky declared martial law. It tends to happen when your country is invaded. Trump lied and said Zelensky is, quote unquote, a dictator. Called Zelensky a dictator, not Putin. Zelensky. He said Zelensky's approval rating sits at 5%. He said nobody likes Zelensky in Ukraine. Well, Trump is a liar. Zelensky's approval rating sits at 50%, possibly higher. So yes, elections have been postponed due to the invasion. But a majority of Ukrainians, according to all polling, are okay with the elections being postponed, the same way the British people were okay with elections being postponed during World War II. Hard to have elections when you've been invaded. 6 million Ukrainians have fled Ukraine since the invasion. Another 6 million have been uprooted and forced to take temporary shelter in other parts of Ukraine. Hard to hold elections. What do you do about eastern Ukraine currently occupied by the Russians? Do they get to vote? But all of a sudden, Trump is Mr. Pro-Democracy. People should be allowed to vote. Yeah. Trump said of Zelensky, quote, I like him personally, but it is the leadership that allowed the war to go on. The leadership of Ukraine. Not the leadership of Russia. Not Putin. Zelensky. Trump said of Zelensky, and this is the problem having an inveterate liar as our commander-in-chief. Trump said of Zelensky, quote, he should have never started it. He could have made a deal, unquote. He should have never started it. Trump literally accused Zelensky of starting the war. Not surprising to hear this from a man with 30 credible sexual assault allegations against him. and E. Jean Carroll. What does he have to do? Pay her $80 million because a jury ruled that he was guilty of defaming her after he sexually assaulted her? Not surprising that a man with at least 30 credible sexual assault allegations would say Ukraine started it. During Thursday's White House press conference, National Security Adviser and supplicant Trump toady Mike Waltz refused to say who was responsible for the war in Ukraine. Asked if he or Trump believes Putin's a dictator, Waltz refused to answer. He was asked, Trump just called Zelensky a dictator. Do you believe Putin's a dictator? Our national security advisor refused to answer that question. Waltz then defended Trump, saying, quote, if there's anybody in this world that can go toe-to-toe, they're so macho. If there's anybody in this world that can go toe-to-toe with Putin, it's Donald J. Trump. Yeah, toe-to-toe. Yeah. Wasn't it his toes that kept him out of Vietnam? Mr. Toe-to-toe. By toe-to-toe, he means the tango with Putin. Putin with a rose in his mouth. Waltz said Zelensky needs to stop, quote-unquote, bad-mouthing Trump and sign a deal handing over $500 billion worth of Ukraine's natural resources to America. This is what's going on now. We're literally saying to Ukraine, if you want us to defend you, you've got to give us $500 billion worth of your oil and your rare earth. Hey, at least it's honest. As you know, Russia and the United States met in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday to begin peace talks over the war in Ukraine. Zelensky was not invited. The same way Czechoslovakia wasn't invited when Hitler and Chamberlain divided up Europe. The same way Africa wasn't invited when the great powers divided Africa up. Zelensky isn't happy about that. He said, quote, decisions on how to end the war in Ukraine cannot be made without Ukraine, nor can any conditions be imposed. Quote, we were not invited to this Russian-American meeting in Saudi Arabia. It was a surprise for us, I think for many others as well. J.D. Vance, very protective, very tough, except around other bullies. J.D. Vance said of Zelensky's comments, quote, disgraceful. He said, you're not going to change Trump's mind, certainly not by attacking him publicly in the media. How dare you criticize or even question mein Führer? This is Nazi shit. This is Franco Mussolini. This is Bolsonaro. This is stuff you see, Pinochet. You know, we're not special. What's going on is transnational, transhistorical. We're not special what's happening in our country. U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg met with Zelensky in Ukraine, but their joint press conference was canceled at the last minute. Didn't go well. Britain's Labour Prime Minister says he's willing to send British troops to Ukraine as peacekeepers. Keir Starmer heads to Washington next week to meet with Trump, with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. France and Britain are upset that despite the EU and Great Britain chipping in just as much cash as the United States to defend Ukraine, like Ukraine, they haven't been invited to the peace talks either. Chris Patten is the former chairman of the British Conservative Party. He told Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times yesterday, we have Trump and his oligarchy of ignorant shoeshiners vandalizing the network of organizations, agreements, and values largely put in place by America since the Second World War, which have given most of us, including America, on the whole, an extraordinary degree of peace and prosperity. I love America and was once happy to regard its president as leader of the free world. Not any longer. Where are the American values that I used to admire? They're being stolen from us by a plurality,